Hey, y'all, and welcome to a new series called Money According to the Bible, right? So, the first topic, if you can tell by the title, is debt. That is something that we all have, right? We have some form of debt, whether it be a mortgage, a car note, student loans, credit cards, personal loans, or we just owe people money, right? So, debt is something that we are in because that is part of the curse that we are under, right? And so I want to start with the first scripture coming from Haggai chapter 1, verse 6. You have sown much, but brought in little. You've worked a lot, but how much money is coming? You haven't brought in that much money, right? We're working a lot for very little pay. Eat, but you do not have enough. Drink, but you are not filled with drink, right? Barely, especially in today's time, you can barely buy groceries, just barely. Clothe yourselves, but no one is warm, right? Because clothes are getting expensive too. And he who earns wages to put into a bag with holes, which pertains to bills, right? We work for money, and that money goes back out typically on payday. The money's gone because we have bills to pay, whether it be, whatever debts we have, and then, of course, living expenses, groceries, phone bill, gas, lights, the things to keep the household running. If you have children, whatever you need for them. So we earn money, but we're not earning enough money. And this is specifically talking to the children of Yasharel because we are under a curse. And therefore, part of that is we don't make a lot of money. We make the least amount of money in this country. And we make the least amount of money no matter where we are. But I'm specifically talking about the United States because that is where I live. We make the least amount of money. It is hard for us to climb up the corporate ladder if that is something that you want to do. It is hard for us to get high paying jobs. And even those who do have high paying jobs or make it to, being a millionaire, billionaire, what have you, what did they have to do to get there? So I'm talking about us regular folk, right? So I do want to read a story. This is coming from Matthew chapter 18, verses 23 through 25. Then Peter came to him and said, Master, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times. Now, he's talking about forgiveness, but the way that Yahusha brings it around, he's talking about debt, right? Yahusha said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Because of this, the reign of heaven is like a certain man, a sovereign who wished to settle accounts with his servants. Now, this parable is more so about Judgment Day, and Yahuwah, we're face to face with him, and he's like, okay, I gave you this. What did you do with it? What did you do with your time on earth? But for this particular topic, as far as debt, we're going to talk about debt. So he said, and when he had begun to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But as he was unable to pay, like most of us are, his master commanded that he be sold with his wife and children and all that he had in payment to be made. Right? So, sold into slavery. Then the servant fell down before him, saying, Master, have patience with me, and I shall pay you all. Now, how often do we do that with debt collectors or with whoever we owe debts to? We ask them, be patient with me because I'm trying to make the money. I have all these different things going on. I'm trying my hardest to get this money. Just give me a little bit of time, right? How often do we ask for extensions on the light bill or the phone bill or the car note, what have you, before they take it or cut it off? And the master of that servant was moved with compassion, released him, and forgave him the debt. Now, this does not happen when we're talking about a corporation or a company. This would typically happen if we're talking about, maybe have a debt with somebody, like a friend or family member. But with a corporation or company, it don't work like that. And it's also talking about when um, we ask Yahweh for forgiveness and repent, he forgives us. And that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, "Pay me what you owe." Then his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, "Have patience with me, and I shall pay you all." Now, this man was forgiven his debts. However, somebody owed him money. Isn't that how it is? Right? We ask somebody for money. We ask, for them to loan us some money, and then they want it back. We tell them we can't pay it. They're like, okay, that's fine, whatever. But let somebody owe you money. You want it back plus interest. That is not how it should be. But he would not, and went and threw him into prison till he should pay the debt. And when his fellow servants saw what had been done, they were deeply grieved, and came and reported to their master all that had taken place. Now, imagine this: if were one of the people who got your student loans forgiven, right? And you have no more debts, but somebody owes you money. Are you going to forgive them of their debt, right? Then his master called him and said to him, "Wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt, seeing you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, as I also had compassion on you?" And his master was wroth, and delivered him to the torturers, until he should pay all that was due to him. So also my heavenly Father shall do to you, if each of you from his heart does not forgive his brother his trespasses. And this also means debt. If somebody owes you money, forgive them. Okay? If they can't pay it back, forgive them. Let it go. Don't keep badgering them about it, especially when, the money is really no loss to you, right? If somebody asks you for money and you literally don't have it, or you know that if you loan them the money that it's going to be a problem, don't loan it to them. Don't. But also, when you are thinking about getting into debt, some things you need to take into account. How long is it going to pay you to take off this debt, to pay off this debt? Do you have at least some of the money now to start making payments? Is this thing worth getting in debt for? The thing is, we should not be having any kind of debts. We shouldn't, right? So let's look at a story about how Yah will provide for you in paying off your debts. Let's turn to 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yahweh, and the lender has come to take my two sons to be his slaves." So now, you have debt collectors coming, right? And you're trying to figure out, how am I going to pay this debt collector? How am I going to come up with this money? I don't have the funds. How am I going to, make some extra money? I have children. I can't really do Uber Eats, DoorDash, Lyft, or Uber, or all these other things. How am I going to do it? Right? And so Elisha said to her, "What should I do for you? Inform me. What do you have in the house?" And she said, "Your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil." She has nothing. And 9 times out of 10, we have nothing, right? We can't pay the debt. And he said, "Go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not get a few, get a whole bunch," right? And she's probably thinking, like, for what? Right? Probably questioning it. We would question it too. "And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then, so that nobody else can see," right? We don't want anybody else to see how Yah is blessing us until we have already been blessed, in case somebody tries to steal our blessing, right? "Then pour into all the vessels, and set aside the filled ones." So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be, when the vessels were filled, that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. But he said to her, there is not another vessel. And the oil ceased, right? Didn't need any more oil, but she has all these vessels of oil. And she's like, I have much more than what I needed. I have so much, right? I have all these vessels and they're full. And it's like, I need more because there's still more oil. And the thing is, he will always provide more than what you need. When it looks like you are in a bind, it looks like there's no way up, and you don't have the funds, right? You don't have the funds to pay whatever it is. He will get you the funds just enough, but you have to be faithful to him. You have to be faithful. So she went and informed the man of Elohim, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. So he gave her not only enough to pay her debts, but enough to provide continuously for her sons to live on. He provided so much, right? So much. So let's look at another story coming from Deuteronomy 15, verses 1 through 6. Now, this is the part of the law that talks about paying debts. At the end of every 7 years, you make a release of debts. And this is the word of the release. Every creditor is to release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He does not require it of his neighbor or his brother because it is called the release of Yahuwah. Now, this more so pertains to like the credit bureau in today's time. After 7 years, your debts or whatever was on your credit report falls off, right? And typically your credit score goes up. Of a foreigner, you could require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed by your brother. Now, this is in today's time, I wouldn't, I'm not even gonna say I wouldn't say 7 years, but if you know it's going to be more than like several months that this person is not going to pay you the money, release them from that debt. Don't even try to require it of them, right? Only there should be no poor among you, for Yahuwah does greatly bless you. So if he blesses you, right, there should not be anybody around you who is without, whether it be friends or family, but don't let them take advantage of you. For Yahuwah does greatly bless you in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you to possess as an inheritance. Only if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim to guard to do all these commands which I am commanding you today. So, people have money problems and they try to pray themselves out of these money problems. But the issue is they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as following his laws, statutes, and commandments. If you're not following the commandments, he's not going to do for you what you need him to do. He's not. For Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you as he promised you, and you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow, and you shall rule over many nations, but they do not rule over you. Now, this is part of the curse, right? He says that we should not borrow. How many of us are borrowers? How many of us owe somebody somewhere some money, right? We're not supposed to be borrowers. We're supposed to be lenders. But because of the curse, that is where we are. So Romans 13 and 5, starting at verse 5. Therefore it is necessary to be subject, not only because of wrath, but also because of the conscience. For because of this you also pay taxes, for they are servants of Elohim, attending continually to these duties. Render therefore to all what is due to them, tax to whom tax is due, toll to whom toll, fear to whom fear, respect to whom respect. Whatever you owe somebody, give that to them. Owe no one any matter except to love one another. For he who loves one another has filled the Torah. You have filled the law by loving one another. So Proverbs 11 and 15. He who is guarantor for a stranger suffers harm, but one who hates shaking hands in pledge is safe. So what this is saying, he who is a guarantor for a stranger suffers harm, right? If you owe a stranger, you're going to be harmed. And not harmed like physically, but harmed in a sense that you're not going to have money, right? Let's take student loans, for example. I know there are some people now who have to pay back their student loans, like as of right now, but the problem is you don't have the money. So it's either pay the student loans or buy groceries, pay the student loans or pay rent, right? That is what it's talking about, harm. But one who hates shaking hands and pledge is safe. Those who hate making a deal for a debt, you are safe. So that's what I was saying, like towards the beginning. Think very carefully and long about a debt that you're about to get into. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth you having to give up something else? Is it worth you possibly having to forfeit your rent and being evicted? Is it worth it to possibly have your car repossessed? Think about that. Before you sign on a dotted line, think about that. Is it worth it? Worth having to sacrifice something that is instrumental in your livelihood? So, keeping it in Proverbs, right? I have actually quite a few verses, scriptures from Proverbs. So, Proverbs chapter 6, verses 1 through 11. My son, if you have become guarantor for your friend, have shaken hands and pledged for a stranger, have been snared by the words of your own mouth, made a bet, right? Have been caught by the words of your mouth, made a bet that you could not check. Do this at once, my son, and deliver yourself, for you have come into the hand of your friend. Go, humble yourself, and urge your friend. Give no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hunter's hand, and like a bird from the hand of the trapper. Free yourself from this debt, from this bet, whatever it is, whatever you shook hands with on, free yourself from it. Go to the ant, you lazy one. See her ways and be wise, which having no commander, overseer, or ruler, right? Nobody runs the ant. Provides her supplies in the summer, gathers her food in the harvest. What you should be working on is making sure that you don't have to ask anybody for money, making sure that you do not have to borrow money from anybody or any institution. You should be setting yourself up, have an emergency fund, right? That's something that, people in the finance community are always talking about. Have an emergency fund that works for you. I know they talk about having $1,000, but that doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes more than $1,000 is what you need. Maybe 6 months, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, depending on how much your living expenses are and how much you make from work, right? How long would you lie down, O lazy one? When do you arise from your sleep? It is easier for people to go and borrow money than to work hard, pick up an extra shift, or do a side hustle to make the money. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to lie down, and your poverty shall come like a prowler, and your need as an armed man. If you're going to be lazy and take the easy way out and get into debt, you're going to be in poverty. It's going to come up on you like a thief in the night, very quick and unsuspecting. Do your best to make sure that you already have the provision for whatever it is that you're trying to do financially so that you do not have to borrow the money. Proverbs 17 and 18. A man lacking heart shakes hands in a pledge. He becomes a guarantor for his friend. Someone who lacks heart, someone who lacks drive, someone who lacks initiative. Because it takes heart to work hard. It takes heart to make sacrifices to make sure that you do not have to go to somebody like, hey, I need to borrow $100. I need to borrow $50. I need to borrow however much money it is. That's what it is. Like it takes heart, right? To have to go and do what you need to do. Proverbs 22, 26, and 27. Do not be one of those who shakes hands in a pledge, one of those who are guarantors for debts. Do not write a check that you can't cash. If you do not have the means to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you? If you don't have the means to pay, why should you make this deal and go into debt and have things taken away from you? Like I was saying before, have your car taken away from you, have your house taken away from you. If you don't have the means to pay it, why sacrifice something being taken from you and going into debt anyway? If you don't have the means to pay whatever it is, you don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need a new phone. You don't need a new car. You don't need that big house that costs more than what you make in a year. You don't need it. Leave it where it's at. It doesn't make sense for you to make a deal or to go into debt for something and there's a possibility, even the smallest possibility, that you will lose something. So, getting out of Proverbs, let's go over to Psalm 37:21. It says, the wrongdoer is borrowing and does not repay. So, if you have a debt that you're not willing to repay, you are considered a wrongdoer, a sinner, right? At once upon a time, I was talking about my student loans. I was like, I'm not going to pay those student loans. I'm not going to pay them back. I can't pay them back. But I borrowed the money and I used the money to finance my education. And I completed my education. Whether I completed it or not, I still need to pay back that money because I borrowed it and I used it. For the righteous one shows favor and gives. Righteous ones give whatever it is that they have, whatever they can afford to give. But the wrongdoer, which is the opposite of a righteous one, would be a sinner, takes and does not repay. Don't be that person. Do not take what you know that you cannot pay back. That's like that buy now, pay later. When it comes to, the whole Klarna and DoorDash, why are you sitting here getting a $1.25 burrito and making 4 payments on it when you've already eaten it? That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense at all. That's like the wildest thing to me. Why buy something that you can't afford to pay cash for it now? And it doesn't have to be physical cash. You can use your debit card, from your bank account. But if you can't pay cash for it now, why do these installment payments, which causes you to be in even more debt because there is interest, especially if you're not making the payments, right? Because I believe it's auto pay. I'm not really sure how it works. I've only used it once and realized I didn't like it. And yeah, I just pay outright. But I think it's you make 4 payments. And if you don't pay, it collects interest. And the interest rates, y'all, the interest rates on a lot of things, cars, houses, credit cards, loans, are skyrocketing. Stay away from it. So, getting down to our last few verses, these are going to be coming from Luke. So, let's turn to Luke chapter 7, verses 41 through 43. A certain creditor had two debtors. The one owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when they were unable to pay, he forgave them both. Which of them then shall love him more? And Simon answering said, I suppose the one whom he forgave more. And he said to him, you have rightly judged. Because he owed him a lot more than the one who owed like 50 denarii, because 50 denarii is probably like nothing. But 500, that's a lot. That is a lot. But the thing is, we don't want to owe somebody so much money, right? We don't want to owe a whole lot of money. We need to be making sure that we are saving money, that we're not spending our money on frivolous things that are not important, that are not going to benefit our well being, and making sure that we can pay for these things that we want. Like if you want to buy a new couch, make sure you can pay for it outright. If you want to buy a car, I would highly suggest buying a used car that you can pay cash for. But if you have the money to outright pay for a brand new car, do that instead of financing it. These are all mistakes that I have made, y'all. My debt journey, let me tell you, I'll probably do a separate video, like doing a real breakdown of my debt journey and going like off of my credit report, because my debt journey, y'all, that's a whole nother video. We'll talk about that at some point. But I have made all of these mistakes. And the position that I'm in now is not the best, but it's better than where I was. And it's getting better every single day. So Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 12. And he also said to his taught ones, this is talking about Yahusha, there was a certain rich man who had a manager, and he was accused to him as wasting his possessions. So having called him, he said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, for you are no longer able to be manager. This is talking about mismanaging your money. Your job pays you a certain amount of money. You should be managing it how you're supposed to be, right? You're entrusted with this money, not just by your job, but who got you that job? Yahuwah got you that job. And he's giving you a certain amount of money. That money is not coming from your employer. That money is coming from him. He wants to see what can you do with the money that you're being paid in your check, however often you get paid. And the manager said within himself, what shall I do? For my master is taking the managership away from me. I am unable to dig. I am ashamed to beg, right? He's like, it's beneath me to like try to go ask somebody for some money. Like, hard work is beneath him. And it's like, no, nothing hard should be beneath you. If you are in debt, there is nothing beneath you. Okay? Humble yourself. I know what I shall do, that when I am removed from the managership, they might receive me into their houses. And calling every one of his master's debtors to him, he said to the first, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then to another he said, and how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said, take your bill and write 80. And the master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly, because the sons of this age are more shrewd in their generation than the sons of light. So he went about it and schemed and scammed his way into paying off these debts. He lied because these people owed his master the money, not him. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by unrighteous mammon or wealth, that what you fail, they shall receive you into everlasting shelters. He who is trustworthy in what is least is trustworthy also in much. So if you can do a whole lot with a little, then you'll be able to do a whole lot with more. And he who is unrighteous in what is least is unrighteous also in much. So if you can't do anything with a little, you're definitely not going to be able to do anything with a lot. If, therefore, you have not been trustworthy in the unrighteous mammon or wealth, who shall entrust you to the true? So if you cannot properly manage the money that Yah has given you as of right now with your job, if you cannot properly manage the money, why would He give you more? Why would He give you more money if you can't manage what you already have? He's already given you enough, just what you need to pay your bills to survive. And if you can't handle that, why would He give you more? And I'm speaking to myself, right? I'm definitely speaking to myself because we're all in that kind of position. Like, we're all not making enough money. Things are getting more expensive. And it's like, how are we supposed to survive? Live below your means. If you are in debt, even if you're not in debt, but especially if you're in debt, live below your means. You don't need to be ordering takeout or from one of these food delivery services. I am guilty of that. You don't need to be going on vacation. You don't need to be going to the movies or going to sit down at a restaurant. You don't need to be going to brunch, right? You don't need to be going to this person's birthday party at this fancy restaurant. You don't need any of that. Live below your means. Cook, meal prep, and stop spending money. Get out of debt. Remember, you should be the lender, not the borrower.